I'll bet this coal'll kill me for my working days are through, and a hole is dark and dirty and early grave confined. I plan to make a union for the ones I leave behind. Stand up, boys, let the bosses know. Turn your buckets over, turn your lanterns low. Fire in our hearts and fire in our souls, but there ain't gonna be no fire in the hole.
Welcome to the United Mine Workers of America's 82nd Annual West Virginia Labor Day Celebration. The tradition of celebrating working families and the power of union solidarity continues. Please welcome our Master of Ceremonies, UMWA International Secretary-Treasurer Levi Allen.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Labor Day. Welcome to the United Mine Workers of America's 82nd Labor Day celebration. You know, we started celebrating Labor Day in 1938 in southern West Virginia. And we have seen just about every kind of weather imaginable, every type of economic condition imaginable. You know, if you think about the birth of Labor Day in West Virginia in the 30s when we started doing this, what a terrible time for miners that was, and all the trials and tribulations that we have overcome as products of our labor. And I can't think of a more appropriate celebration to continue doing than our Labor Day celebration. And what's really trying this year is, even though we've seen, 100,000 coal miners die in the mines, we've seen 100,000 coal miners die from black lung, it has been generations since we have seen Americans die by the hundreds of thousands in such a short span of time as we have seen during the coronavirus pandemic. So our Labor Day celebration is really different from the way it's ever been. We've always been shaking hands and hugging and in presence with one another in this great congregation that we love as a part of this union. And unfortunately, we're not able to do that this year. Just because we're not able to do that this year doesn't mean we still can't love each other, we still can't share each other's company, and we still can't celebrate the greatness of West Virginia, the greatness of the United States of America, the greatness of labor in this country, and the greatness of the United Mine Workers of America. You know, last year, a lot of us took a march from Marmette to Racine in remembrance of the Blair Mountain March. And I know President Roberts is going to talk to you more about the big plans that we have for next year when we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Blair Mountain March. But, since we talk about this being an opportunity for congregation and fellowship and love and labor and solidarity, I can't think of anything more binding and what really made me fall in love with the mine workers in the first place than us starting off this celebration the way we start off all of our celebrations. And that's with the Pledge of Allegiance and with prayer. So I'd like to lead you all in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you would all join me, I'd like to take the opportunity to say a prayer, and I think it's so important in these times. Father God, we come before you. We come before you in some of the most uncertain times any of us have seen in our entire lives. We're fearful. We see political divides. We see social divides. We have personal trials and tribulations through which we are all going. But we know when we gather together that your Spirit comes among us. And when your Spirit comes among us, your love for your creation permeates throughout all of us and gives us hope and lifts us up and helps us find the love necessary to move us forward, to move us from a place of insecurity to a place of safety and prosperity. And we ask that you will come with us all today as we're spread out across the great state of West Virginia and throughout the great country of the United States of America, and just bring your presence into our hearts and let our virtual communication become a true congregation, that we might all share one another's thoughts and feelings and help bring healing in these troubling times. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. We really have a great event lined up today. We have some great politicians. We have some wonderful labor leaders. We have Tom Briding, who has sort of been the troubadour for the United Mine Workers of America as we went through the 10-year battle to secure pensions and health care for our membership. But first, and usually I get to do this last, so it's really amazing for me to get to do this first. I get to introduce someone who I just have more respect for him than anyone I've ever met in my life, and that's saying a lot because, you know, I have so much respect for my mother and my father and my family and the members of this union. But I'm telling you, I don't know that I've ever seen the quality and depth of character, the passion, the compassion, the leadership, the strength, the actual moral fiber in someone that I've ever seen in President Roberts. When times are darkest, there's a light that shines in him and a resolve that hardens in him that has moved us from some of the most trying times in the history of this union to some of the greatest pinnacles of success. And I would be remiss if I didn't say just what an amazing friend and human being Cecil is as well, aside from just being this magnificent labor leader. So I want to take the opportunity now just to let you know that our leadoff man is the finest labor leader in the United States of America, the leader of the United Mine Workers of America, President Cecil E. Roberts.
Hello, brothers and sisters. First, let me thank my good friend Levi Allen for that wonderful introduction. But more importantly, let me thank him for all the hard work he does around here to make my job easier and to represent you. We're blessed to have him as our Secretary-Treasurer. Before we move on, I'd just like to reminisce a second. We never thought we'd be doing Labor Day virtually. This is the 82nd anniversary of the first Labor Day celebration in West Virginia by the United Mine Workers of America. I think back on all of the Labor Day celebrations I've been to, and just to make clear, I haven't been to all of them because there's been 82 of them, right? But I think about Harry White and Johnny Protan, who worked for probably 40 years to put this event on, J.D. Peters, Porter Cotton, my old friend Tony DeRimo. Most of all of these gentlemen, brothers, have passed away, but thank them for all that they did to make Labor Day special for all of us. I think back now to just last year, if I may, when we hiked over Lenz Creek Mountain to remind everybody of what took place on that mountain almost 100 years ago. This coming year, the next Labor Day celebration, we'll be commemorating the 100th anniversary of Blair Mountain. If you don't know that history, we'll make sure you do between now and then and on that day. And so get your hiking shoes on. Next year, we'll all see if we can make it not only to Racine, which is an 11-mile walk, but all the way to Blair Mountain. That's going to be quite a feat. This year was the 100th anniversary of the Make Mountain Shootout. We had planned to do more than we've done, but next year we'll make up for that too. Our history is rich, as you know, with wonderful, wonderful leaders in the past who have built the labor movement itself. But since last year, I want you to think about some things with me, if you don't mind. 3 months after Labor Day last year, Congress passed historic legislation to protect your pensions and health care. And we all celebrated that because we worked 10 years to have that happen. Many of you listening to this got on those buses, went to the rallies, lobbied, and it's your victory as well as the union's victory. And thank you for that. But since then, things have been a little tough in the last several months, as you're aware. We never thought we'd be dealing with a pandemic that's taken around 187,000 of our fellow citizens. And 6 million of us have been ill. So we're dealing with a pandemic that's created an economic catastrophe for us. And our friends, our brothers and sisters who work for Murray Energy have been fighting through a bankruptcy now for almost a year. And we should be thankful that in about 2 weeks, we believe that they're going to come out of this successfully, keeping their jobs, keeping the UMWA contract, staying in the UMWA, and thank them for all they've been through in these difficult times. I want to also think about our friends that work for the post office and the postal system. Could you ever imagine a time in your life when somebody or group of people are opposed to the post office? You know, the place where you get your mail. I want you to think about the veterans, and we honor the veterans today too because we couldn't be here without them. Veterans receive about 80% of their drugs to keep them alive through the mail. And we have people saying, let's shut down the mail service. A huge percentage of our retirees receive their medical coverage, not their medical coverage, but their pharmaceutical drugs through the mail. And they wouldn't be able to survive without that. So we have the post office itself at risk. We stand squarely in support of the Postal Service, our brothers and sisters from the postal unions, and everybody that depends on the post office to survive. I want you to think about our brothers and sisters who've been laid off. There's 20 million of our friends and neighbors, brothers and sisters are laid off right at this particular time. We need to get them back to work. And then the coal industry itself has been devastated because of the collapse in the economy. We've had about a 30% reduction in the amount of coals used in this country. And finally, I'd just like to mention the airlines. Do you realize the airlines themselves are at risk? All the people who belong to unions that work at airlines, the flight attendants, the pilots, the machinists are all at risk here. So we need to stand in solidarity with all of our brothers and sisters who are fighting to keep their jobs, keeping themselves in their homes, and keeping their families fed. We're better off in many ways than most. We should be very thankful every night for what happened in December of last year when our legislation passed. But being in a union means standing with all workers in this country, every single person that's in a union. And I know you'll do that because you've been doing that for your entire careers. Now I'd like to take a moment, if I could, to introduce one of my dear friends and a person who fought for years by our side to protect us with respect to our health care first and then our pensions. And that's the senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, who led this fight in many ways in the United States Senate, particularly on the Democratic side. And with that, I give you my dear friend, Joe Manchin.
Thank you for the kind introduction, President Roberts. As always, you're a tough act to follow, but I'm going to do my best. I've been a public servant for almost 4 decades, and in that time, I'm proud of what I have fought for with all of my West Virginians. But let me be perfectly clear. It has been an honor of my life to fight alongside President Cecil Roberts and the fine men and women of the United Mine Workers of America to secure your hard-earned pensions and health care benefits. You know, we speak about our families, and I always have said, you are who you are by where you were born, who raised you, and how they raised you. You're a product of your environment. I heard the stories of my grandfather, Papa Joe, forever telling me about when he was a young boy and he went into the mines. He was 9 years old at the time, and he worked there. And then he got married to my grandmother, Mama Kay, and they had 5 children. He was expecting A. James, which is in 1927. And Papa just kept telling everybody, we just can't make it. We're not making anything. We really owe our soul to the company store. He said, we had nothing left over. It was all script, and we were always in debt. Well, they basically, when I say they, the mine operators had identified my grandfather, Joe Manchin Sr., as a rebel rouser, a rebel union rouser, that he was basically trying to organize. Papa was trying to survive, and the only way he knew how to survive was to have an organization of other people that felt the same as he did. That's how my grandfather, and that's how our family got started. Well, lo and behold, making a long story short, they got thrown out of their company house on Christmas Eve, 1927. Uncle Jimmy was born in February of the following year. They basically lived in a glorified barn, if you will, for a year. It was awful. But I remember their stories. And my Uncle Jimmy always said, I cut my teeth on Union wood. And boy, was he so right and correct. Well, anyway, we never forgot where we came from. We never did. And that's who we are. And you know what? The UMWA was made a promise. In 1946, President Harry Truman made a deal with the UMWA to guarantee lifetime health care and pensions for local coal miners and their families, because they had done everything this country asked them to do. They mined the coal and the steel that was made from the coal that built the ships and built the factories to defend the country. But over the next 70 years, coal companies took advantage of the loopholes in our bankruptcy laws, and they broke that promise. So we started fighting to make Congress uphold the promise that President Truman made to the miners. Work that we accomplished, everything that we had done, we fought tirelessly, pushing for legislation, threatening to shut down the government, and persisting, making sure that every member of Congress knew who would lose their health care and pensions if they didn't act. And let me make it very clear. If it wasn't for each one of you all making the effort and making that sacrifice to come and walk the halls of Washington, we would have never got this done. There wouldn't have been able to pay enough lobbyists to do what you all did, nor should they, because you were the face of what we were fighting. You were the face of America. And we showed up to remind the Congress of that. And they knew who we were fighting for. We were fighting for our families and all the people that made this country great. Your camo t-shirts were the most recognizable outfits on Capitol Hill. You were more effective than any Washington lobbyist I've ever seen. And since 2016, we've protected health care for 36,000 miners, widows, and their children. And last December, we secured pensions and health care for 92,000 miners and their widows in the Bipartisan American Miners Act. So here we are today on Labor Day. We're here to celebrate the labor that made America. Labor Day was created in 1894 by Congress to assure that nobility of labor be maintained. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't take an act of Congress to maintain the nobility of labor. The men and women who go to work every day and sweat and sacrifice and innovate say more about the nobility of labor than any congressional resolution. You take care of your families. You support your communities, our great state of West Virginia, and this wonderful country of ours. You work hard every day. Labor Day is about celebrating the hard work that you've always performed. And nobody deserves to be celebrated more than the United Mine Workers of America. Your labor and the labor of those who came before you, mined the coal that forged our steel and built our tanks and ships, that powered our country to be the greatest in the world, you made it happen. And make no mistake, America is still the greatest country in the world. But for the last several years, it has felt as if common decency and civility have been absent from the American politics and our American way of life. When we look around, we see pain on the faces of our brothers and sisters, friends and neighbors, where they are suffering because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the opiate epidemic, or the systematic racism that we can no longer turn a blind eye to. In politics, we used to be able to agree to disagree and to do it respectfully. That is no longer the case. And the toxic rhetoric often stems from the top. It often stems right from the top, from the president. We have to begin treating one another as we would like to be treated again. This election is the most important in our lifetime. Election day is Tuesday, November the 3rd. I encourage each of you to make a plan to vote. If you're voting by mail, which is a perfectly safe and reliable option, believe me, I've checked it out, request your ballot today and send it back as soon as you can. If your state allows for early voting, I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. And if you intend to vote on November the 3rd, please remember, if you're in line before the polling location closes, you do not have to leave until your vote has been cast. Don't get out of line and don't leave just because they say the polls are closed. You are waiting well in time to cast your vote. It's time for working families, the families that built this country, the families that we celebrate this Labor Day, to have a government that works for them. We have an impressive group of men and women up and down the ballot in West Virginia this year that are committed to delivering for working people again. Ben Salango for governor, a great individual, a good person. John Perdue, the best in the country, state treasurer. Sam Brown Petsong. Sam has been fighting for working men and women all his life. Natalie Tennant, we all know Natalie. She did a great job as Secretary of State and ready to go back. Marianne Clater for state auditor, has all the experience the one ever would need for that job. Bob Beach, a great individual, state senator, understands the process well, Agriculture Commission. We have an impressive list of West Virginia Senate candidates. Randy Schwartzmiller, Josh Gary, Bruce Ashworth, Bob Plymel, Ralph Rodigerio, Glenn Jeffries, David Bug Stouffer, Bill Laird, Denise Campbell, Doug Facemeyer, Mike Caputa, Pete Daugherty, Andrew Robinson, and a robust list of House of Delegate candidates who are going to give working people a seat at the table again. So thank you, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you so much, Senator Manchin. You know, we had a champion since his very first day in the United States Senate fighting for us to make sure that we got this legislation passed. And this was life-saving, life-changing legislation. And God, Joe, I know how challenging it is to follow President Roberts anytime you're giving a speech. He's just absolutely amazing. He's the most brilliant labor leader in the United States today, and you always shine, even in the biggest moments possible. And we have so much appreciation and respect for everything you have done for us. But you know, Senator Manchin didn't act alone. He didn't act alone. He had a partner. And often when people think of a partner, they think of somebody just in their exact same camp. And that's not the case. That's not why we got this done. That's not why this legislation was so groundbreaking. It was groundbreaking because it was truly a bipartisan effort. It was a bipartisan effort, and it took fight on both sides to make sure that we could get this done and save the people of West Virginia. And though I say they're in different camps, really all I just mean is different caucuses, because they are in the same camp. They're in the same camp for the people of West Virginia. And I'm so proud to introduce our next speaker. She's a dear friend of ours. She's been fighting for us, trying to get this legislation passed under tough circumstances, fighting, you know, with people who in the past might have been a little bit in opposition to actually getting this done. And she worked her tail off. She's brilliant. She's been a dear friend to ours and a dear friend of the people of West Virginia. Of course, I'm talking about Senator Shelley Moore Capito.
I'd like to thank Levi for the great introduction. It is wonderful to be here with all of you at an event that has such historic value on Labor Day, and that's your Labor Day rally. I know we're all missing being there together. I've joined you there several times over the past 10 or 15 years, and I know everybody always enjoys kind of the end of the summer celebration of all the hardworking men and women, not just of the UMWA, but also of our labor force here in this country. I want to especially thank President Cecil Roberts for his constant communication, for his friendship, but also for the steadfastness with which he has worked with all the members of Congress, and certainly me and my office, to make sure that this celebration is extra special. And the way it's extra special is that we've celebrated that we have solidified the health care and pensions of the UMWA miners. This was a 7-year fight and a lot of stops and starts. And I can tell you, many of you who are probably watching were in my office monthly with your camo shirts with the bright yellow print, which I have one, but I couldn't find it this morning, and made yourselves, your presence known very respectfully, but in a large and very vocal group that said, look, let's make this fair. Let's keep a promise that was made in the 1940s to all of us, that the hardworking men and women of the UMWA, the miners, our coal miners, who built this nation, who have powered this nation for years, and at great sacrifice in many cases, that they're recognized and taken care of from both their health care and their pensions that they worked so hard for, and that we make sure that they're fully funded and guaranteed through your lifetime. So this Labor Day is extra special to be able to celebrate that. I also want to thank the UMWA and the board and particularly President Roberts for the endorsement this year for my campaign for U.S. Senate. We've known each other many years. We've worked together on many issues. Most of them we disagree on, some of them we don't. But we do know that when it comes to working together to do the important things like health and pension benefits, and working to keep coal miners working in this country and keep the coal mines open, we've been joined together. And so I think it's in recognition of that, you all decided to endorse me, and it means quite a bit to me, really the world to me. So I thank you for that. I hope that every day we say a prayer for all of our men and women who are still working in the mines. We say a prayer for all the men and women in the labor force in this country who work every day to make sure that we're safe, happy, and prosperous. During this COVID time, I'm going to fight just as hard to make sure that we have a healthy country, healthy West Virginia, that we have a vaccine, that we have treatments, that we have testing, that we have safe schools, safe workplaces, and mining operations certainly fall within my desire to have a safe workplace for all of you and all of those miners that are still working. So thanks a lot. Happy Labor Day. And again, thank you very much for honoring me with your commitment to support me in this election. And I won't let you down.
I truly have so much respect for Senator Capito. Every time I've talked with, or every time I've spoken with her, I've felt really just welcome with open arms. She actually, family home in Moundsville, right up from where I live. So I just absolutely, I think the world of her, and we're both hometown people. And, our next speaker, I have commonalities with our next speaker as well. He talks about coming from humble roots, growing up in that single wide trailer. I grew up in a single wide trailer too. I came from humble roots. I worked hard. I brought myself all the way up from being, a cashier and a rank and file coal miner to the International Secretary Treasurer of the United Mine Workers of America. Ben Salango has worked every bit as hard. He's, county commissioner in Kanawha County. He's a brilliant man. He's really going to move West Virginia forward. We need Ben Salango right now to help heal West Virginia and give us a true path towards success where everybody can prosper. And I'm just so honored to get to introduce our next speaker, our next governor of the state of West Virginia, Ben Salango.
Happy Labor Day, everyone. Thank you, Levi, for that introduction. Thank you, Cecil. Thank you, Senator Manchin, for all you do. Unfortunately, we can't celebrate Labor Day as we typically would, but I wanted to come on this Zoom and this video and let you know that I've got your back. I stand with labor. I stand with the UMWA. I stand with our working families. Not just today, but every single day. My coal roots run deep. I'm from Southern West Virginia, grew up in Raleigh County. My folks started a little advertising paper down there called the Old Mountain Trader. They started it in the living room of our 2-bedroom trailer, and they worked night and day to make it a success. But the reason it was successful is because every Wednesday morning when we delivered it, we had coal miners waiting there at the convenience stores, at the gas stations to grab it, put it in their lunch bucket, take it underground with them. we understood what coal mining and what coal miners meant to the state of West Virginia. As a lawyer for over 22 years, I've stood up for coal miners, I've stood up for working families. I've stood up for those that have been injured, those that have been ignored, those that have been taken advantage of. As a county commissioner, I make sure that we pay prevailing wage on all of our new jobs, all new construction projects. And last year, I stood up for our UMWA and our coal miners when we needed Congress to pass benefits to make sure that our miners were taken care of. You need a governor who's going to put safety first, who's going to put coal miners first, put working families first. You need a governor who actually wants the job and not just the fancy title. That's why I'm honored to be endorsed by AFL-CIO, UMWA, and over 30 labor unions. They know that with my administration, they're actually going to have a seat at the table. They actually know that I'm going to be taking care of their interests and not special interest. So I appreciate everybody coming on this Zoom. Thank you so much. Let's get out and vote. Let's make sure that we win the governor's race. Let's make sure that we win for working families up and down the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. You are greatly appreciated. We absolutely need you in the state of West Virginia. We need to move forward. We need progress. And when I look at this, I can't see someone who has stuck so hard towards progress in the United Mine Workers of America as our next performer. And I say performer because he's not just going to give us a speech, he's going to play us a song. And that's our troubadour, our brother, our dear friend, Tom Briding.
Thank you, Levi. Appreciate it. Great to see my friend and inspiration, Cecil Roberts again, President Cecil Roberts. And hello to all of you brothers and sisters. A lot of big decisions coming up, and with Election Day approaching, and it's time for all of us to do what's right. It's time to stand with this union. It ain't about one or two. It's about all of us everywhere. Take a good look around you. You can see it in your neighbors. Take a look into their eyes. We're all in this fight together, and it's time to organize. Are you ready to step up? Are you ready for a fight? Can we all stand with each other for what we know is right? We ain't asking for a handout. We won't ask for nothing more than what your lifetime of labor and your sweat and blood paid for. It's time to heed the call, heed the call. You know right from wrong. It's time to heed the call, heed the call. They've lied for far too long. Your work, sweat, sacrifice, that's what has made them strong. It's time to organize. It's time to heed the call. It's time to stand with this union. It ain't about one or two, but thousands of us here today. Take another look around you. You've won this country's wars. You built a home of the brave, and they promised you in the 40s, cradle to the grave. It's time to heed the call, and you know right from wrong. It's time to heed the call, heed the call. They've lied for far too long. It's your work, your sweat, sacrifice, that's what has made them strong. It's time to organize. It's time to heed the call. It's time to organize. It's time to heed the call. Heed the call.
Indeed, brothers and sisters, it is time to heed the call. It's time to heed the call. It's time to organize. It's time to make a difference in the state of West Virginia. And our next speaker is a man who makes a great difference in the state of West Virginia. He's a fabulous convener. He's a strong man. He comes out, he believes in every single one of us, and he believes in us because he sees the dignity of work like no one else in the labor movement in West Virginia. Of course, I'm talking about President of the West Virginia AFL-CIO, CIO, and my dear friend, Mr. Josh Sword.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Allen and President Roberts, and thank you all to the great active and retired members of the United Mine Workers of America. Unfortunately, we are not able to be together in person on this great holiday, but I am honored to be with you virtually. Labor Day, that's today, and it's your day. A day set aside every year to honor and recognize the value of what workers and their families have done to make our country the greatest in the world. Labor Day, a day to reflect upon and recognize what the labor movement has meant to workers and their families in our quest for fair wages, good benefits, and a safe workplace. You know, this coronavirus has presented challenges that we haven't seen in more than 100 years. But the labor movement has responded with passion and dedication, fighting nonstop for worker protections despite the failure of some in our state and federal governments. That's what the labor movement does. Labor Day, in election years, is also the unofficial kickoff of the general election campaign. This Labor Day is one of those days. And as we all start paying a little more attention to political candidates and their platforms, I implore you to scroll down the virtual ballot just a little bit and focus on a number of races that aren't as polarizing as the race for president, but in many ways are just as important, if not more. And I promise that you will have an opportunity to support candidates that will support higher wages for workers. I promise that you will have an opportunity to support candidates that will protect our pensions and our health care. I promise that you will have an opportunity to support candidates that will support our efforts to make workplaces safer. And I promise, you will have an opportunity to support candidates that will fight for working class families and uplift the labor movement so we can keep making real progress in the battle for a fair economy and a just society. There are less than 60 days till the election, an election that many are saying is the most important election of our lifetime. With so much at stake, we can't sit out. A vote not cast is a vote not counted. And we can't afford missed opportunities to change the direction of our state and our state legislature. Please consider supporting labor-endorsed candidates when you vote in the 2020 general election. In closing, it is my hope that families across West Virginia have an opportunity to relax and enjoy the outdoors. And later today, when it's time to head back inside after a day of fishing or an evening barbecue, we should all hold our head high, knowing that our labor makes a difference. This is your day, Labor Day, and thank you for it. It was a real privilege to be with you, brothers and sisters. Stay safe.
Hi, Eugene Murphy Jr. here, and proud resident of Logan, West by God, Virginia, and the heart of the coal fields. My father was a coal miner, my grandfather, a couple of my uncles, and I too, before I even went on America's Got Talent, was this close to getting my underground miner's card. So I salute you all. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your 82nd annual Coal Miners Picnic, even if it is online this year. I will be celebrating with you guys. And I salute you all for keeping the lights on. Thank you so much.
Integrity and stability are very, very important. And no one in the state of West Virginia safeguards our finances and takes care of the people of West Virginia and protects us from financial misdoing quite like our state treasurer, Mr. John Perdue. John is a dear friend of mine. He's our next speaker. Let's all welcome our state treasurer.
Thank you, Levi, for that wonderful introduction, and it's great that we're continuing this labor rally here in Racine, though it's virtual, and And I've been coming here since I was a small child with my dad and grandfather, and it's been part of my life as it's been part of your lives. I think it's over 80 years old, and it's good that we're continuing it here once again. But let me thank each and every one of you for the endorsement that you give me and support of me as state treasurer, and I've always cherished that. And I have done some things for you as well, as be able to return $230 million of unclaimed property to many of you working men and women of this great union, and also start a college savings program to allow you to save for your children and grandchildren's education and get a dollar for dollar tax deduction on that as well. But you've been there for me, I've been there for you, and I have never forgotten that I work for you.
I absolutely love State Treasurer Perdue. You know, nothing says quality quite like consistency and stability and solidarity. And for a man who's been coming to Labor Day events for over 50 years in the state of West Virginia, you know you have someone who's going to stand in solidarity with you for the long haul. So I want to tell our state treasurer once again how much I appreciate him. And I get to introduce our next speaker, and I absolutely love her. She is a dear friend, and she is a recent recipient of the Sarah Mother Blizzard Labor Activist Award. She is so deserving. She's with the Communication Workers of America, a union I absolutely love, and she is a dear friend to every single West Virginian who toils for a living and every single West Virginian who has any part in a working family. And of course, I'm talking about our dear friend, Elaine Harris.
Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be with friends again as we celebrate this Labor Day. We're under a lot of difficult times right now, but as we always do in the labor movement, we do survive. But I want to thank President Cecil Roberts, a dear friend, and Senator Manchin for always being on the front lines fighting for us. And as we go into this election season in the final stretch, I want to thank Ben Salango for being our endorsed candidate to run for governor of West Virginia. We do need the leadership, and that is very apparent on the front lines each day as difficult decisions are made. We need a leader for tough times. I want to just thank the United Mine Workers on behalf of the CWA and the working men and women that we have the pleasure of representing each and every day. I want to thank the mine workers for always being by our side, as rest the labor movement for always being with us. We have to be together. We are one. We stick together. And as I said at the beginning, it's tough times, but we're tough people, and we will survive. But I want to just give a shout out to our essential workers, people that in our grocery stores, people that are our members that work in the correctional, juvenile and jail facilities, and our troopers that are out on the front lines, and healthcare workers as they go about their jobs each and every day. They don't have a choice of whether, you know, I can work from home or whether I can just not have any duties that I have to perform today. They have to be there. And I want to say thank you to those men and women. And to our other essential workers, our coal miners, as they go about their shifts working 24 days, 24 hours a day to mine the coal. They are there on the front lines. And I just want to say thank you. This Labor Day is a bit different. For more than 40 years, I've been going to Racine. That is my Labor Day each and every year. We're not able to do that because of this virus. We can't meet in the large numbers that we always do at Racine or the other parts of the state where we celebrate Labor Day as a labor movement, and our friends come and support us. So this is different. But we have to do things different in tough times. So again, to our brothers and sisters, retirees in the United Mine Workers, We join in celebrating with you this Labor Day. We just do it in a different way. So I say solidarity forever. We will survive this and we'll be stronger. Thank you.
You know, I believe in our next speaker. I believe there's not going to be anybody who's been in the Attorney General's office for years that's going to fight for you like our next speaker. Sammy Petsong is absolutely one of the most quality people you will ever meet in your life. And I realize that was kind of a faux pas to say it that way, but this is a man of great quality. He's got a plan for the people of West Virginia. He's going to fight for the people of West Virginia. He's going to use the full might of the Attorney General's office to help you find a better way of life. This man is my friend. This man is a friend of the mine workers. He's a friend of West Virginia. Please welcome candidate for Attorney General, Sammy Petsong.
Hi there, this is Sam Petsong, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General of West Virginia. It's great to be together with the mine workers on Labor Day, like I have been many times over the years down at Racine. A lot of good memories to get to be here virtually with everybody today. Levi Allen, President Roberts, great memories being at Racine for Labor Day with Joe Carter and Harold Hayden and a lot of good leaders, and some who have gone on, sadly passed on, Lee Kogar and Marty Hudson, and a lot of the people that have taught us how to fight, how to struggle, and how to, most importantly, what the mine workers know is how to win. And I tell you guys, my race could not, really have any higher stakes. We have an Attorney General that has gotten West Virginia into a lawsuit that is right now, it's pending at the United States Supreme Court. He would eliminate billions of dollars in healthcare jobs for hundreds of thousands of West Virginians. That means people with pre-existing conditions could lose their health insurance if my opponent wins his lawsuit and wins this race. Pre-existing conditions, that means people with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, COPD, black lung, silicosis, diabetes like me, I'm a type 1 diabetic, pregnancy, cancer. So many people in West Virginia could lose their health insurance if my opponent wins. And hey, look, the mine workers know what it means to lose health insurance. You all have led the fight because you know the stakes. If you lose health insurance, our families get set back a generation because, heck, you spend your life savings trying to buy health insurance if you lose it unexpectedly. We can't let that happen to our people. Cecil Roberts and each and every one of you in the mine workers has won too much for too long to let our government come along and take back this critical support for our people. So I hope that because we know how to win in the mine workers, because we know the stakes, that we'll take some time and explain to our children and our cousins and our neighbors and our friends, our co-workers, if we're still working, someplace. I hope that we remind them we cannot afford to lose this race to Patrick Morrisey. West Virginia's got too much on the line. Between now and November, if you would, follow my Facebook page. It's Sam Petsong for Attorney General. It's samforwv.com. It's real easy. You can go on our website, samforwv.com. Follow us on there. Send me a message. I've had a lot of good times with many of you. Just standing up in court and doing what's right. What I always say, if you don't fight, you don't win. And I learned that from the mine workers. And let's remind our people that we will fight. We will win. We've been to bankruptcy court. We fought the toughest battles that there are to fight in the mine workers. We're going to do the same thing when we have a new Attorney General for the people of West Virginia. I look forward to doing it with you, fighting these battles. The Lord knows we don't have time to spare. So stay in touch. Stick with me. I'm glad to be with you on Labor Day, and I thank you for having me.
Speaking of brilliant leaders, I don't think that I've seen such brute force collective action happen in the state of West Virginia with true solidarity and clean action that has caused change at the state level, quite like our teachers. And our teachers are led by a great man, a dear friend, with great staff and an unbelievable executive board. And of course, I'm talking about my dear friend, Fred Albert. Please welcome everybody, President of AFT West Virginia, Mr. Fred Albert.
Thank you, Levi, for that introduction. It's always a pleasure to join my union brothers and sisters from the UMWA in celebrating Labor Day and honoring the American workers who have built and sustained this great country. I would like to also thank President Cecil Roberts for tirelessly fighting for working families. Your energy and passion for what is fair and just for both your members and all workers in this country is unparalleled and so appreciated. AFT West Virginia will be forever grateful to those two labor leaders and their members for the tremendous support and resources they provided to us during the 2018 and 2019 education employees strikes in West Virginia. Our efforts would not have been as successful without the assistance and solidarity of our United Mine Workers of America brothers and sisters. Standing shoulder to shoulder with the UMWA gave us additional credibility to our fight for better wages, benefits, and funding for public education. I would also like to salute my brothers and sisters in the AFL-CIO, especially those essential workers who have kept America running during this pandemic. Healthcare workers, grocery store employees, postal workers, truck drivers, and many other workers have all contributed to our country in an immeasurable way, and I thank you. Traditionally, Labor Day marks the end of summer and the beginning of a new school year, fresh with the promise of opportunity and excitement. This year, the back-to-school anticipation is tempered by anxiety over the obvious safety concerns related to COVID-19. Since April, AFT, both nationally and on the state level, has been collaborating with health experts, policymakers, and elected leaders to determine how to safely return to teaching and learning. We have been advocating for the resources needed to safely reopen our schools and protect our staff and students. There are no simple or easy answers during this unprecedented time, and the situation changes daily, but our union is committed to protecting our members and the children they serve by any means necessary. We will continue to call on the governor and our education officials to properly utilize the CARES Act funding to enable a safe return to teaching and learning. To everyone who works tirelessly to make our communities and country continue to run in the face of unprecedented adversity, thank you and have a safe and wonderful Labor Day.
You know, when I first met our next speaker, it was so cold and it was so rainy, and I screamed myself hoarse in support of her. I couldn't talk for 2 or 3 days after it. And, you know, I talked before about people that show up and stability and trying to find out who your friends are by the fact that they stand with you for a long time. Look, I've never been to an event that had any real meaning in West Virginia that this woman hasn't shown up for us. She believes in the cause. She believes in a better way of life. She comes out, she shows up, she's a genuine, authentic West Virginian. She was the mountaineer, for heaven's sake. You know, I can't say enough about her. She's amazing, she's dynamic, she's strong, she's a great West Virginian, she's a strong woman. My dear friend, Natalie Tennant.
Thank you so much, Levi, for that introduction, and thank you for your leadership, your energy, and your enthusiasm for coal miners all across the country and in West Virginia. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Tennant, and I'm running for Secretary of State. Just like you, I want a West Virginia that welcomes businesses and diversity, embraces innovation, and respects workers. Respects workers. That is so important, something that we should be doing not just on Labor Day, but every day of the year. Problem is, we're not getting that from the current Secretary of State. Here's what he did. On his first day on the job, he illegally fired 16 people, costing the state $4 million. Worst part, well, one of the worst parts is that he didn't even interview these workers and these employees himself. He didn't even look at their resumes or their personnel record. What he did was have a lobbyist do that, and it cost the state $4 million. And then he goes in public and criticizes these employees and calls them incompetent. That's not decency, that's not dignity, and that's what he's done to the people of West Virginia, not just these employees, but that's what he thinks about the rest of us. And so I'm running to restore that for the state of West Virginia, to have that decency in the Secretary of State's office. Here's the other reason, many other reasons that I'm running to, is for your freedom and your voice to be heard through voting. I have a record of doing that. He has a record of putting up barriers around every corner. Perfect example is not sending out absentee ballot applications to eligible voters like was done in the primary election. He has made it more difficult. He's also refused to implement automated voter registration that would make it easier for Democrats, Republicans, anyone who wants to get registered to vote. But he refuses to do that. I will make sure that's done. I will also make sure that our small businesses are taken care of and remove a fee that he placed on our businesses. I'm known as an innovator for modernizing and streamlining the office and using a lot of work online that made it easier for businesses, charities, and workers to use the Secretary of State's office. I will restore that when I get back into office. But I need your help. I need your help on the ground, putting up signs, talking about folks, and you've been doing a lot of that, and I truly appreciate that. I will be brave so West Virginia can be bold. We need to move forward, West Virginia. It's going to take courage, vision, and cooperation. But I know we can do this, West Virginia. I believe in you, and I would be honored to have your help, your support, and your vote. Thank you, everyone.
Natalie Tennant belongs as our Secretary of State. She's earned that right. And we need to get out and do everything in our power to get her back in that position, because she has earned it through a lifetime of dedication, hard work, friendship, solidarity, strength, and integrity. So please, if you do learn anything from me today, or you do anything I ask, get out and vote for Natalie Tennant. Let's return her to the Secretary of State's office that she deserves. And now we have another musical selection by my dear friend, Mr. Tom Briding. And I think this one's gonna get in your feels. So, Tom Briding.
Thank you again, Levi. Brothers and sisters, I hope each one of you realizes and recognizes the incredible legacy that each one of you and your families are leaving behind. You're leaving footprints in the coal dust, windows to the past. A century of sacrifice built the middle class. So we'll stand with this union, the UMWA. They're leaving footprints in the coal dust. And wherever this great union is strong in our coal towns, the people live the promise our fathers handed down. Hardships and struggles no one bears alone. We take care of our neighbors, we take care of our own. We're leaving footprints in the coal dust and windows to the past. A century of sacrifice built the middle class. So we'll stand with this union, the UMWA. We're leaving footprints in the coal dust. And for those who came before us, Now we carry on. When the load is heavy for one, together we stay strong. If we remember where we come from as we look ahead today, we'll never walk alone, we'll never lose our way. We're leaving footprints in the coal dust, windows to the past. A century of sacrifice built the middle class, so we'll stand with this union, the UMWA. We're leaving footprints in the coal dust, footprints in the coal dust. We're leaving footprints in the coal dust. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
I love Tom Briding's music. I absolutely love it. One of the reasons I play guitar now. So thank you so much, Tom. You know, our next speaker, whew, wow, he's strong. He's dynamic. He's amazing. He has a gravity and a magnitude unlike many people I've ever seen. And I work with Cecil Roberts. So let me tell you, this man is a strong leader in the West Virginia School Service Personnel Association. Of course, I'm talking about the executive director, Mr. Joe White.
Thank you, Levi, for the introduction. I'd also like to take a moment and thank President Cecil Roberts for his great leadership and also for his friendship. And a thank you to Ben Salango for his vision and for his caring for working West Virginians. I look forward to having Ben as our next governor. You know, it is again a great honor to be asked to speak today. As the son of a union coal miner who was taken away way too young, it's one of the greatest and most humbling honors to be here, even if it's virtual. You know, in 1894, a law was signed to honor contributions and achievements of the American workers, and it's called Labor Day. Most of you have forgotten more than I will ever know. But the one thing that I do know, and I will never forget, you all, my brothers and sisters, fought the fight. You all paved the way for all working men and women in America. You all helped build America and the American dream. You all, my brothers and sisters, built the West Virginia that I love. Thank you. Thank you. And let's keep moving West Virginia forward and vote for leadership that respects labor. Happy Labor Day.
You know, a strong woman with drive who puts forth the effort will always rise to the top if given the opportunity. They'll fight hard, they'll do everything they can to make sure they make a difference. And because some of my favorite people in the world come from Cabin Creek, West Virginia, it doesn't hurt when you come from Cabin Creek either. So our next speaker is Marianne Clater, candidate for state auditor. Take it away, Marianne.
I would like to thank Levi for that introduction. And I would also like to thank United Mine Workers of America for their endorsement. Like Levi said, my name is Marianne Clater, and I am running for West Virginia State Auditor. I am the only candidate for West Virginia State Auditor that actually has an accounting degree and over 30 years of experience in governmental accounting. I'm also a proud coal miner's daughter. I was born and raised in Cabin Creek, West Virginia. I was the last of 9 children. My father was born in 1891 and worked in the mines during the infamous West Virginia Coal Wars. He saw firsthand the toil, greed, and corruption from the coal barons take on people risking their lives underground. He taught me to stand up for the working class and to take on anyone who tries to do us wrong. Unlike our current auditor, who when he was a representative, supposedly representing us, in the West Virginia House of Delegates, a non-binding resolution was passed calling on Patriot Coal to honor its promise to our miners and their families. He tried to recuse himself from the vote just because his law firm represented Patriot Coal. But he was eventually forced to vote. And he was one of the 4 that voted against our miners and sided with Patriots. I'll be able to take on the greed of the coal barons, but I will have the power to make sure every taxpayer's dollars is spent appropriately. Just as I did when I worked for the West Virginia State Auditor's Office, performing financial and compliance audits for over 20 years, I will hold politicians accountable. That's my promise to you, my promise to make accounting great again. If you can remember Clater for auditor when you go to the polls, I would greatly appreciate it.
You know, I always enjoy my conversations with our next speaker, and I want to remind y'all to get out there and vote for Marianne, you know, for state auditor. But we do need a lot of change. We need a lot of people who can work together and make a difference. And like I said, I've always enjoyed my conversations with our next speaker. He's from the Monongalia County area. He's a strong, strong leader. He will make a difference in the Commissioner of Agriculture's office. Please welcome our next speaker, Mr. Bob Beach, Senator Bob Beach, I should add.
Thank you, Levi, and thank each and every one of you for this opportunity to speak today. Today, we take time to acknowledge the contributions by men and women like yourselves who built this great country. That being said, you know, here in West Virginia, we are faced with a great opportunity. We have an opportunity as voters to take back our state and at the same time lift up our friends and family, simply by choosing to elect people like Ben, Natalie, John, Sam, Marianne, and myself, people with a long-standing commitment to West Virginia. As many of you know, I come from a family of farmers. But did you also know I come from a strong union family of coal miners and teachers? Unlike my opponent, the solidarity that unions represent is of great value to me and paramount to reestablishing our middle class. Oddly enough, that's why I'm campaigning for Commissioner of Agriculture. Agriculture, for whatever reason, no longer maintains a priority among our residents. Agriculture is in fact a necessity, a foundational necessity. Truth be told, agriculture is economic development. It's a means to feed our family, but it's also a means to feed a large segment of our population. Are you aware that West Virginia is within a 6 to 8 hour drive of 68% of our U.S. population? It's time we take advantage of this consumer base. We need to grow more in West Virginia and market more outside West Virginia. This present pandemic has exposed weaknesses in our food supply and weaknesses in our food supply chain. Food needs to be processed at a regional level so that we're not faced with limitations when shopping for our favorite meal. So where does the job growth occur? It begins at the farm and ends at the grocery store. It's processing facilities, it's transportation, it's farmers markets, it's constructions of new facilities, processing facilities, all of which require a trained workforce. Let me wrap this up by saying I have an agricultural perspective that my opponent will never have. I was raised on a large 800-acre Angus farm north of Morgantown. FFA and 4-H were part of our daily lives. I trained to be a meat cutter following high school, which eventually led to managing stores and becoming a meat commodities buyer, which provided me with monies to attend college. And finally, the last 20 years, I've been in the legislature as a member of the Committee on Agriculture, where I also chaired the committee. All in all, 54 years of experience. I have a plan to grow West Virginia via agriculture, a plan that includes greenhouses in our schools, building dairy herds, growing our hemp sector, to name but just a few. Take a moment to explore Beach for West Virginia for more information. Again, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Stay safe and happy Labor Day.
The next speaker that we're going to have is, he's not just a great West Virginian, he's a really dear friend of mine. And anytime I have hardship in my life, anytime I have struggles that I'm going through, I can always rely on him to be there for me. He's been a champion for me when I was still going 1,200, 1,300 feet underground, eking out a living for my family. He stood by, supported me, counseled me, criticized me, and lifted me up as I rose to the ranks of the United Mine Workers of America, and we still talk on a regular basis. He just recently celebrated his 40th wedding anniversary with his amazing wife, Tina, and you know, I know he's not going to sit here and talk about himself. He's going to talk about getting out and doing everything. Please, this man belongs in the Senate of West Virginia, and of course, I'm talking about my dear friend, a great United Mine Worker, and a great West Virginian, Mike Caputo.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Happy Labor Day. Times are really difficult, and we're doing things a lot different than we do normally. But I want to begin by thanking my friend and leader, Brother Levi Allen, for that very kind introduction. Levi, you've really are growing into this spot. Cecil Roberts definitely picked the right number 2 guy, and I'm honored to be a part of this as well. And Senator Manchin, thank you so much for joining us today, and your remarks were so spot on. And thank you so much for your leadership in helping us through these difficult times and saving the pensions and health care of tens of thousands of hardworking UMWA miners and surviving spouses. And President Roberts, I can't say enough good about you. Our friendship has been very long-term, probably over 30 years. I've had the privilege to work with you. I've had the privilege to serve this union on the International Executive Board, and your leadership is second to none. We certainly could not have achieved what we have achieved without your leadership and the membership's trust in you. So a special thank you. Your remarks are just always so inspiring, even though we're doing them virtually this year. But you just fire me up. You fire up everybody that listens to you, and we can't thank you enough for all you've done for our great union and for working class folks all across West Virginia. Brothers and sisters, as I said in the beginning, very different times, very difficult times. Normally, we would be in parks and we'd be rallying and we'd be marching in the streets and we'd be getting our message out to our members and we'd be enjoying each other's company and our fellowship that we have been able to partake in for so many years. But we can't do that this year. We can't join together. The COVID crisis has changed things as we know it, but we cannot forget what has went on, particularly here in West Virginia, and we have other statewide candidates, endorsed candidates with us today. I want to thank them as well for supporting working families and their quest, and good luck to them in their elections as well. We got to remember what's happened to us in just a short 6 years since the Republicans has taken the majority in the West Virginia State House. There's been 2 teacher strikes, brothers and sisters, in the last 3 years, and they could have easily been averted if it weren't for the adversity and the lines that was drawn in the sand by Mitch Carmichael and those who follow him through the gates of hell to do anything to hurt working West Virginians. They've taken away prevailing wage for our brothers and sisters in the construction industry and changed their way of life forever, and passed right to work. Who ever thought in West Virginia we would ever see right to work? The state where the labor movement began, where we had to fight the hardest under the harshest conditions, and for those politicians to come in and take that away, to weaken labor unions, weaken health and safety on the job, it's just unfathomable in my opinion. And something that should be very near and dear to us is certainly very near and dear to me. This current legislature has rolled back coal mine health and safety 50 years. Laws that we fought for, laws that our members died for, has been stricken and weakened in West Virginia. We cannot have that, brothers and sisters. And I submit to you, even if we can't rally in the streets, we have another way that we can rally, and that's at the ballot box. I'm going to encourage you all to send in for your absentee ballot. Get your vote in early. If you're going to go to the polls to early vote, please do that. If you're going in person, please do that. But most of all, we need to rally, and we need to rally around our endorsed candidates. We must support those candidates that are supported by your unions and all of organized labor. That's how we win. That's how we rally. That's how we achieve victory. So COVID may have changed the way we do things, But it hasn't changed what's happening to us in politics. It hasn't changed that we need to support those who support us. And we can still do that, brothers and sisters. We can still do that. We can still flex our muscle. We still have strength, but we need to do it at the ballot box this year. So I encourage each and every one of you to do that. Encourage your family, your friends, your neighbors, and everyone you know to get out and vote for the organized labor endorsed candidates. May God bless each and every one of you today. May God bless organized labor. Please have a healthy, safe, and happy holiday. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity to thank Mike and thank all of our leaders and all of our, candidates who spoke today. We've got a lot going on. It's been a crazy year. It's Labor Day. Labor Day's about you. Labor Day's always about you. And people that come out here and spoke today care about you. They want to fight for you. They want to make a difference for you and make a difference in the state of West Virginia. And I know next year, when we get behind all of this, we're all looking forward to good times ahead. But I want y'all to keep something in mind. Cecil told you get your walking shoes ready. Get your hiking boots out, because we're marching all the way to Blair Mountain next year. And it's going to be one for the ages. So I ask you to consider the gravity of these days and the need for change, the need for us, and take some time. Look at the people across the dinner table tonight. Let them know how much you love them. Let them know what Labor Day means. God bless you all. God bless the United Mine Workers of America, and God bless the great state of West Virginia. Happy Labor Day, brothers and sisters.
It ain't about one or two. It's about all of us everywhere. Take a good look around you. You can see it in your neighbors. Take a look into their eyes. We're all in this fight together, and it's time to organize. Are you ready to step up? Are you ready for a fight? Can we all stand with each other for what we know is right? We ain't asking for a handout. We won't ask for nothing more than what your lifetime of labor and your sweat and blood paid for. It's time to heed the call, heed the call. You know right from wrong. It's time to heed the call, heed the call. They've lied for far too long. It's time to stand with this union. It ain't about one or two. It's about all of us everywhere. Take a good look around you. You can see it in your neighbors. Take a look into their eyes. We're all in this fight together, and it's time to organize.